Today, join me to make some pork temple cutlets, extremely tender, with some twice-baked mashed potatoes and fresh asparagus. Your family will love you for it, and they'll ask you for it all the time. And I have my pork temple cutlets here, and all I do is I put them in some flour first. I've learned from experience, do not season the flour because I'm putting beef bouillon cubes in it, which adds salt. So if you season the flour too, you're going to have way too much salt. So I do not season the flour. So it doesn't take long to get these into the pan. Just want to make sure you've got a good amount of flour in it. And when you're done coating these, don't toss your flour because this is going to make its own gravy. I used to make a separate gravy and then realized that this just makes its own gravy. So don't toss this flour because as this makes its own sauce, you may want to add a little bit of flour to thicken up your gravy. So keep this flour, don't toss it. And so what we're going to do is lightly brown each side a little bit. Try to give each side just a little bit of a crust. Alright, so that's all the cutlets. So like I said, I'm going to keep my flour to the side, just in case I need more of that, for 35 minutes. But right now I'm browning the one side for a few minutes. And so while we've got those started, we want to make sure we get all of our potatoes peeled and ready to go, because potatoes, they can take 20 minutes or so to boil and get really tender. But we want to get these all peeled, and I usually cut them, depending on the size of the potato, into about 4 pieces so that they cook quicker. You don't have to get all of the peel off, it's not a big deal. I started cutting these and had most of these done, but now we've got all the potatoes in. We're going to put those on high and let those boil for about 20-25 minutes. Suppose I can start flipping these. I'll probably let the other side get a little bit more brown, little bit of a crust on it. And then once I'm done letting them go on this side for just a minute, I'll add in the water and the beef bouillon cubes and let them stew. But for right now, I'm going to flip all of these over and let them cook on the other side for a couple of minutes. I'm going to keep flipping these, and you might need to add a little bit of more extra virgin olive oil in the bottom. We don't want these burning to the bottom of the pan. Whole prep and everything, I'd say probably about a 45-minute meal. But it's really, really good. The meat is so tender, and your family will get excited when you tell them what you're making, and they will request it. So I've got these flipped over to let the other side cook just a little bit. I'm going to add just a little bit more oil in just a couple spots. We don't want it burning and sticking to the bottom of the pan, but we don't want the sauce or the cutlets to come out greasy. So I'm not going to go crazy. And once I start stewing these, I'm going to start mixing them with a soft spatula. So now I'm going to put the lid on, let these go for just maybe about 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll start putting in the kind of sauce that we're going to create that it's going to stew in. Okay, so now I'm back. I've let them brown on the second side for just a few minutes. And I don't know about your electric skillet, but mine, I have to keep it really low. Otherwise, it really does like a raging boil. So I have to keep an eye on my skillet to make sure that it's not overheating and overcooking these. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the lid. And we put in beef bouillon cubes. And I typically do 2 per pound of cutlets. So I've got 5 pounds of cutlets, and then I added in 2 extra. So we've already got those peeled. They come individually wrapped. I've got my water. We brought that to a boil. So we're going to go ahead and I want to dump in water enough to cover the top of the cutlets. And like I said, this is going to make a thick, really yummy gravy to go with your potatoes. So it's just a staple that we always make mashed potatoes with this, because otherwise you're just wasting the gravy that it creates on its own. So then I just drop in the cubes, just space them out. Just going to give them a little stir around, and you're going to want to do this frequently, maybe every 5 minutes or so. And you can keep an eye on it. Toward the end is where you will see if the gravy is thick enough, or if you want to add a little bit of your flour that you saved. Alright, so now I've stirred these around. I'm going to go ahead and kind of layer them out a little bit. Looks like I want a little bit more water in here. have enough water to cover the cutlets. As you can see, it's already starting to make its own gravy. And it's really important with these cutlets to not get impatient and try to eat them before the 35-minute mark, because they're so tender when you let them go the 35 minutes. So now I've got them all dunked down in the sauce. I'm gonna go ahead and put the lid on and let them stew for about 5 minutes, and then I'll stir them again with my plastic thing. But I wanna turn them down just a little bit. You don't want a raging boil. You don't want them burning. So I have my fresh asparagus. I'm going to put it in the pan, but I'm not going to start it yet until the cutlets have maybe like 5 minutes left, because like I said, I don't want them soft. I want them to have that good crisp still. Okay, so I don't have my asparagus pan on yet. I put some extra virgin olive oil in there, but I'm just gonna get it ready so that when there's 5 minutes left on the cutlets, I can get them started. Fresh asparagus, you just snap and they come off right where they need to. I do just the extra virgin olive oil, and then I'm going to do just a very light amount of garlic salt. It doesn't take much, so I'm just going to give it just a light little dusting of the garlic salt right before it's done. But I will start this when I've got 5 minutes left. Turn my potatoes down a little bit. So I'm just going to put the lid on and we'll start that in a little bit. Pork cutlets. Like I said, you got to keep an eye on them. They're really rolling boil right now. So I'm going to come in and give these a nice stir with my plastic spatula. And as you can see, they are making their own gravy, which is so good. But I won't need to add any extra flour to it because mine is nice and thick, so I can get rid of my flour. Just keep an eye on these. You don't want them crusting to the bottom of the pan unless you like yours to have that, you know, kind of crunchy crust on it. Then I suppose, you know, let yours cook to the bottom a little bit, but we like ours nice and soft and really tender. So stirred those. I'm gonna put the lid back on. All right, so I've got about 15 minutes left and still coming in and stirring these every, I'd say 3 to 4 minutes, because you don't want these to get burned to the bottom. Mine is actually pretty thick. I think I might actually add just a tiny bit more hot water to kind of thin out this gravy just a little bit. I'm gonna mix that in. Potatoes are still going, gonna let those go. We've got about 13 minutes left. So like I said, when we've got about 5 minutes left, I'm gonna drain the potatoes, get those all mixed up with all the good stuff, which I'll go through that with you, and then I'll get the asparagus going. Okay, so I'm gonna mash the potatoes now. We still have about 9 minutes left on the cutlets. I forgot we were going to mash the potatoes, mix in a bunch of ingredients, and put them in the oven so that they get nice and cheesy and baked. So we're gonna go ahead and drain the potatoes quick. Okay, well, lost one. Stray! All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the potatoes in the bowl. I'm gonna go ahead and get those matched up and mixed, and then I'll put them in the pan with the butter and everything. So I've got my mashed potatoes all whipped. We have the butter dumped into the mashed potatoes, the stick of butter. Now I'm going to put in some fresh minced garlic. About maybe 2 tablespoons. And now I have a bunch of fresh grated mozzarella. I grated this up yesterday. I'm gonna put a bunch of this inside, and then I'm gonna leave some for on top of my potato to put in the oven. Gonna add just a little bit of garlic salt. Not gonna go crazy. Leave that there and start the asparagus on about 6. I'll put a touch of the garlic salt on there. Put the lid on, let that go. All right, so now I have some sour cream. We're gonna put some sour cream in our potatoes. I use light sour cream. I'd say that's about maybe half a cup. Oh, don't want the lid off that bad boy. This one comes out really fast, so we'll see if I can not go crazy on the pepper today. Garlic powder. We like garlic. Onion powder. and Parmesan with garlic. And I might add some milk in, but we're gonna try it without and see how whipped it is first. Because when you add sour cream, you really don't need much milk, so we'll see how much we need. I added a little bit more sour cream, and I'm gonna put some chives in my potatoes. End up adding any milk in, just because I don't know. I guess they're pretty thick. It just depends on how thick you want, but I think these are fine. I'm gonna put this into a glass ramekin dish and bake it. Use some potatoes. Cheese. The fresh mozzarella. I have some bacon that I made in the air fryer a little bit ago, specifically to do this. All right. Put some bacon on the potatoes. I'm gonna do a little bit of chives, and then we're gonna pop that in the oven. Okay, so I'm going to just give these just a touch of garlic salt now that they're done. And we're gonna try one. Yep, still crispy. Perfect. Okay, so my pork cutlets are done. The timer went off. I went ahead and turned them off, unplugged them, and I've left the lid on it. So we're gonna let those sit there until we've got everything else ready, and we'll plate it all up at the same time. Add a couple of these pork cutlets, and these should be fork tender. You should be able to just cut them with the side of your fork. Okay, now I've got some asparagus. Okay, now my twice baked potato, all ready to go. All right, it is all done. This is the pork cutlets with fresh asparagus, twice baked potato, mashed potatoes with bacon, chives, mozzarella, all kinds of good stuff. Enjoy.